didn't mean my word. Otherwise, we would have just talked for an hour.
I mean, I've considered that so many times on like podcasts I've listened to where like how much pressure is that as the person hosting it? Like if you just get into the conversation off the bat and like 2 hours later you look down and the red light is not blinking and you're like, oh,
Oh no. I used to
oops.
listen to one called the Gus and Eddie podcast. Are you familiar with that at all?
Not by name.
No, but they stopped doing it. I want to say sometime this year, but it ran on for like 3 years. It was really funny, but like almost every episode halfway through, like whoever was in charge that day of recording, they'd be like, hold on, let me make sure I'm recording.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, yeah, I just can't fathom like I would have like several different ways to hit record so that you were like,
Yes.
triple checked.
No, absolutely. That's like one of my biggest nightmares. Actually, I did do that recently with a guest. I had Anthony, this actor, local actor, who's I think has a lot of potential to be one of the greats someday. His name is Anthony Sells, and I forgot to hit record on the Zoom recorder, but thankfully I was recording a video with my phone, and the audio was good enough to kind of I edited a bit, but I was so embarrassed.
Maybe it's just
Still,
meant to
even
be
when I
that
had a
way.
backup.
It's meant to be that way for reasons we don't know yet.
Exactly, dude. What have you been up to today?
Today I am actually getting ready to go into work here in a couple of hours. We're doing some night work over outside of Atlanta. And
Yes.
so just waiting for the sun to go down.
Ooh.
But I kind of like that. Just because I think you and I were talking recently that especially I'm working on like a TV production right now, and TV production, you definitely get into a rhythm with just how each day is sort of structured, just because just they have so much stuff to get coverage of, and just so I mean it's mind-boggling the logistics of 13 episodes versus 2 hours. And so naturally you just have to get into a sort of predictable schedule just to
Yeah.
keep track of it. But every now and then in the schedule you'll get kind of like a cool reverse day where you have to wait till nighttime. And I don't know, some people kind of that annoys them, but for some reason I've always enjoyed when like a work day is a very unusual type of schedule, because it just, I don't know, it adds an interesting sort of aura to the day of
Yeah.
work.
And yeah, we did talk about that on the phone like last week, I want to say. And one of the I have a question for you now in my head.
We'll
This
speak.
with television. Now I'll ask you some other day. No,
Just read my mind.
so I've done, I want to say, like 4 television shows before, but I've only ever been a recurring character on one of them. And like a movie, um, things are cut,
Yeah.
but I feel like, obviously like a television show, if it has 10 episodes, let's say it's an hour long, that's 10 hours. Or if it's just a 30-minute episode, that's 5 hours,
Yeah.
which is, a lot, double of what a movie is. And have you, while filming, like, I feel like I have a pretty good radar of being like, oh, that's going to get cut or that's not making it. And
Interesting.
I would never say like what specifically, because I don't think it's ever on the writer or the director or anything, but sometimes you just, I don't know, I just have that feeling. And you don't have to say specifically, but do you kind of get that feeling whenever you're on set or like on a TV show, you're like, yeah, I doubt we'll ever see this like subplot actually happen?
And definitely speaking from just limited experience in terms of like I've been on like in a lot of like smaller kind of like content creation projects, like for different like advertisements or for different like almost like daytime TV type shows.
Yeah.
And at least for me so far, those are the times where I'll definitely see things that I'm like, that's probably not going to make it in. But that's more so because like, especially like if it's like, something, I don't know, for like, Food Network or for HGTV or for, like Discovery Channel or just, anything like that, or even just like an ad for a company, you have a lot more sort of coverage on the fly sometimes where, they'll sort of find a moment or kind of craft a moment as they go, since they might not be going to like a shot by shot script, but they're more going for like a tone or a theme and shooting around that. And so at least for me, that's where I've definitely seen stuff where even if it was a really nice sort of genuine moment, maybe it was too long, maybe it was too short, maybe like if it was put in, it would sort of throw off the rest of the story they're trying to tell. Like that's where I'll see it. Whereas on, something that I'm working on now, they're on like their third season. And so it's not so much that I'm seeing any scenes that'll, get cut or that I think will get cut, because I think by the third season, they have such a good sense of how their rhythm works and what they're sort of going for that, even if a scene might seem, kind of slow or might seem like it's taking a while, it's usually because, they're writing it so specifically now because they know exactly what they want. They're like, you'll see this tiny little shot and you'll be like, how does this work into the larger story? but, and sometimes on shows, like when you're just starting out, like when a show is just starting out, it can be like you said, like you see it and you're like, oh, it's probably going to get cut. But in this case, it's like they're shooting such specific things because they've got it down to such a science now that it's not because they're kind of trying to figure it out, but it's like, it's this little tiny puzzle piece that goes in this perfect little place in the story made just for that tiny little puzzle piece. And so I don't know, there's a bunch of different, I guess ways to look at it, but yeah, you definitely, you sometimes think something might get cut, but then sometimes you realize maybe it will, or sometimes you realize it's actually such a perfectly crafted little almost insert shot that you realize it wasn't just on the fly, or it wasn't something they were questioning, but it's just something they picked up because it's in the schedule. But I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly or
no, yeah, I just thought it'd be like an interesting like thing to talk about because I feel like that's just one of the things I like to think about on set, or like going through the script, not being like, oh, this is bad, this will get cut, but being like, oh man, like, because a lot of great moments have been cut from certain things I've worked on, or from like other movies where you watch the behind the scenes, you're like, that got cut. Like, it's crazy. So I just thought it'd be interesting to kind of talk about like if you felt the same way you're on set. But like, I would say even when you feel like something might get cut, I never feel like it's a waste of time shooting it, because you honestly just never know.
Absolutely. And that's like every time
in the editing room. Yeah.
And I don't know if it's the same for you, and maybe now you can answer this question, but like, I'll try and like, obviously to an extent this does work, but I'll always try and take previous observations and experiences from previous sets and apply them to new sets that I'm on. But like, I'm always so constantly surprised by like how unique each set is. Like, and once again, I say to an extent because obviously there's like types of like professionalism and just ways of carrying yourself on set that will always be good. But like in terms of just how a group of people of that size, whether it's a really big group on a large set or a pretty like streamlined group on a smaller set, or like everywhere in between, there's always like these little nuances and quirks of why something's filmed a certain way, why something's filmed a certain amount of times, why something that's filmed might get cut. Maybe it's like a logistical reason, maybe it's a story reason, or maybe it's just because it would distract from something else. Like, there's so many reasons why stuff gets cut.
No, and one of the things you just said is like how each set is different. Through my limited experience of being on set, whether a TV or a movie or a commercial, I feel like the kind of the vibe on set solely relates to the director, meaning, and I put them in two categories. One, a director that's passionate about what they do, and a director that's just kind of there to get the job done and get a paycheck.
Definitely.
Because I've worked with both sets or both types of those directors. And I've been reading through this Christopher Nolan book written by Tom Schoen, who's a an LA critic, and a lot of it is a collection of them speaking to one another in
Oh,
between
cool.
his like films. It's a great book. Like you should totally check it out. It's called Nolan, and I think it's just called the Nolan Variations. And but it's going film by film, and I want to say I just finished kind of their part on Inception. But one of the things I've gathered from the book is like, Christopher Nolan, he's one of my favorite directors, and in my opinion, he has not made a bad film. I think all of his movies are strangely different, but they're all masterpieces in their own certain way. And it's just kind of like, well, how does a guy consistently make really good movies? And I honestly think because he's never phoned it in. Like everyone that talks about him in the book so far, like admire him, not because, oh, he's really smart or anything, which he is, but like he is just like constantly trying to up himself and constantly seeking collaboration from other people. Like a lot of the times he's like, I had a really bad idea, and then my brother, because his brother, Jonah Nolan, I think.
Is it Jonathan? I thought
Jonathan, but he calls him Jonah throughout the book. Jonathan.
Gotcha.
He's not my brother, so I'll call him Jonathan. So he's like, oh, Jonathan had this idea, and I was like, oh, that's great. Or it's talking about him spending hours and hours in his personal garage, like going over certain things, whether it be the score with Hans Zimmer and how like he brought this to life, or or a production designer brought this to life, or a costume designer. And so I'm just like, man, he's just like constantly wants each and every area to be in a word, perfected. But he wants to make sure he's collaborated with everyone, and that they get they get their own ideas in. And I'm just like, oh, that's why he's such a great director, is because like he's making sure everyone's ideas are heard, and definitely he's willing to change his ideas, or he's also willing to follow his gut if he has an idea that maybe no one gets, but he really stands by. And to kind of talk a little bit more about Christopher Nolan, like you should definitely check out the book if you're a fan, if anyone's listening, if you're a really big fan of him, or if you really don't know much about him but really love movies, you should just watch it, because it's just really interesting. I think, or sorry, go ahead. I've talked.
Oh no, I was just going to say that even though I haven't read the book, that all instantly rings true, because I feel like no matter, even if, some of his films aren't your favorite, or if they're, maybe not, totally your style, or if maybe, one film spoke something to you in one part of your life, and a different one of his films sort of speaks to you in a different part of your life. Like all of his films, you can like feel that like this sort of excitement of just the creative process hasn't in like I guess like I don't think he's ever really let the excitement of it get too like monotonous. Like I never feel like there's like this, formula he's adhering to, or that he's, trying to hit trying to hit like these certain marks. Like even if he's hitting like certain kind of story points that other movies have hit, every time you get to it, it feels like you're, experiencing it like in a new way. Like I just feel like he always has this like really great just energy that comes through his movies, of just like it never feels like you said, it never feels like any part of the movie is just being phoned in. Even if it's not the best movie, it feels like every part of the film had some real just what's the word, like momentum behind it when it was being made.
No, I absolutely agree. And one of the things when he was when he was talking to Tom Schoen about Inception, was he started writing that in his early college days. And then got to about like, I think he specifically said like page 83, and just couldn't get past that page. And it sat in his desk until after the Dark Knight came out, which was 2008. And he said, and Tom Schoen wrote that much like Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven, which sat in his desk for, decades, like Nolan was waiting for this script to mature like a whiskey. And
that's so cool.
I know, it was so cool the way he worded it. And Nolan actually figured out how to then finish Inception, because he spent 2 months away from his family during while filming portions of The Dark Knight, and he missed his kids so much that after The Dark Knight, he took them to a beach and saw that kind of vision of the main character of Inception, like looking at his kids building those sandcastles and like really missing his wife while he was working. And I just, that in itself I thought was like amazing.
That's like goosebumps. I've got like goosebumps listening.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure that's happened to a bunch of directors. I was going to ask, since you're a writer, is there like maybe a script that you've worked on or like plan on working on that like you feel like it, even though you might really want to work on it now, you might have to like wait until like your 40s or 50s to like finally make it happen? I know that's an odd question, but like,
no, it's not. I mean, even like, like stuff that I've, like, how would I say this? It's almost like it's the same thing. I feel like probably a lot of people of any sort of creative persuasion could like align with that, where like if you look at maybe something you've created recently or like something you've written recently, and then you think back to where you were like 2 years ago on this date, and you're like, you probably are almost like you could have written it back then, but you weren't necessarily ready to write it. And it's just interesting how it seems that when you do create something, it kind of comes out when it needs to and when it's meant to come out. And that's so fascinating, because I feel like that just links up with everything we've been saying about him and everything we kind of appreciate and are inspired by about him, where it never seems like the writing process for him is about hitting deadlines and about meeting the criteria to get it made or get it bought. It feels like writing for him is a very much that in that kind of traditional sense, like he's living like at the same time, like he lives alongside the work. It's like the work is growing at the same time he's growing as a person. It's not like he's like, this is now where I will write the comedy film, and now I will write an action film, and now I will write a drama. It's like that's so cool that just like the self-awareness to be like at page 83 that he just had to step away for a bit and let the universe kind of tell him what he needed to say in the film. That's really cool though. Wow. I don't even know if I answered your question, but I was just like, I'm just thinking so much about everything you just said about him. That's just so cool.
I know it's the question you can't really answer until like it's presented to you later down the road. But I read that last night lying in bed, and I was just like, man, this is just so fascinating that this is how writing works. It's, I don't know. And considering how like amazingly written that film is, like you can, after reading that, I was like, oh wow, that I'm definitely gonna have to watch the movie again, and then again when one day I'm blessed enough to have children. And like I feel like that's one of the magical things about movies is like it can affect you in different ways as you age, and that other forms of art can do too. But I feel like these
especially,
especially. But kind of going back to what we were talking about first, we were over the phone. We were kind of talking about like we also were discussing the spectacle of films and how it's really difficult to capture that. I think you brought up Dune, and you said you'd seen it and you really liked it, but it just didn't hit you in a certain way that you thought it would. Did I word that right for you?
Yeah, and I just had like a flash of a connection to our, Christopher Nolan conversation when you just reminded me of the Dune conversation, where it's like, and listen, like I totally understand why some people had like the revelation that they did with Dune. I mean, I'm in, no small way unaware of its just magnificence.
I still have yet to see it. I think I'm going to go buy it on Blu-ray and stick it in. But sorry.
I guess, no. You never have to apologize.
Wait, never to anyone? Huh?
Well, I don't know. You might have to think about that one. But, well, no, because like you and I we were talking about just like how like, what was once considered, like a, generation defining spectacle in filmmaking is now just like a regular Friday at the movies.
Yeah.
Right? Just in terms of just how far the technology has progressed. And I think with Dune, and also I guess just how my kind of taste in movies has grown as I've grown, I've come to find that, character stories and like real nuance with characters, usually ends up sticking with me longer than, say, a really incredible spectacle film, or like a really impressive environment in a film. And obviously the environment enhances, like the characters, but like with Dune, I was so just impressed and overwhelmed and just, immersed in the environment, but I can't say I had the same experience with like the nuance of the characters themselves, or like the dialogue that was spoken, or the relationships that they had.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they're making more that could, change as more films come together. But I think for me, it was just an interesting experience I had. Whereas, and this might be a tangent, but it just kind of popped into my mind. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Nolan's new film Tenet, but there's moments in that film of like cool little character nuance that have like just stuck with me for like many, many, many months. And maybe this is just like a personal, just like preference, or this is just, my personal taste in art and films. But like my favorite moments in Dune were like these cool, almost like physical expressions of character. Like there's a really, beautiful scene in the film. I won't spoil it, but like it has to do with just like the relationship between Timothée Chalamet's character and his mom. And, even though I can't really recall many of the other, kind of pivotal sort of character moments in the movie, that one's really stuck with me. For Tenet with Christopher Nolan, I couldn't really recall, the full film as I might recall, like some of my favorite films that I've ever seen. But John David Washington, who plays the main character.
Yeah, the protagonist.
Yeah, who plays the protagonist, literally and narratively.
Yeah.
And this is like where I love where like kind of like real life morphs into the storytelling, and the storytelling kind of morphs into real life, and you get this kind of cool sort of complexity and nuance. But he was, I think, and I could be getting this wrong, but I think he was either like in line to go to, or maybe was even in like the NFL or something for a while, or was like in the professional football just realm of just like the combines or the drafting process. I don't know what it was. I just know
I have no idea. I'm looking it up right now while you're talking.
I just know that he, and I'm getting to a point with this, I promise. But he was just like, he's an exceptional athlete outside of his acting career so far. And I'll wait if you're researching it or anything.
No, I'm listening. Oh wow, he was signed with the St. Louis Rams as an undrafted free agent in 2006. I had no idea, and I did not realize he was 37 years old. I thought he was maybe 30.
So
wow.
So outside of acting work and the training that actors go through to play very physical roles, John David Washington is an exceptional athlete by all definitions of the phrase, if that's what he was doing prior to his film work. And in Tenet, there's like these two moments that have just stuck with me ever since I watched it. And when I go to look up the scenes on YouTube, the comments are filled with people talking about it. And I feel like this also merges into just Christopher Nolan's eye for just like really unique, organic, nuance, like character moments. In the same way you were talking about, where like real life kind of merges in with the storytelling. With him, it was, that experience of having the kids and, seeing them on the beach and working that into how he felt with the characters in Inception. This doesn't go as deep into, necessarily the sort of dramatic story, but in Tenet, John David Washington's character has these moments of like athleticism that usually are only reserved for like the villains in the story, or like some like stunt performer. But like in the beginning scene, like the opera house raid, like there's a couple of moments where he burst into like a full sprint. And it's, I don't know, like there was something about it, like that wasn't a movie sprint. Like that is a man who knows how to run. And it was like, and I don't know why it is. And this is why we do these podcasts, so we can investigate these things. But like, I get giddy talking about it, of like seeing such a cool, like unique and organic moment of like human just physicality. Because for me, I don't know, it just elevates that scene and elevates parts of the movie to just like this really cool level, where you just have something that was obviously written in the script, but that only a really cool, director who had an eye to really go out of his way to film that kind of long shot of him running through the opera house.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it just really stuck with me. And then the other scene is when he has the fight in the kitchen with like the thugs, I guess.
Yeah,
He's at the restaurant and he goes into the kitchen of the restaurant, and he has this like explosiveness when
and
he
before
like
that, he says one of my favorite lines in the movie.
oh yeah,
He goes, I ordered my hot sauce an hour ago.
yeah.
Which
And
I heard some people were like, oh, like that's not funny. I laughed at that in the theater, laughed
oh
at
my gosh,
it.
and it's so perfect because like for him to have that line and then literally display this level of like explosiveness and violence and just tenacity as, you know, the good character in the film, that just had so many cool ingredients that just really stuck with me, of like just in seeing him move like that and seeing how he, you know, moves through a group of people. It's more than just like a normal fight scene where like, oh wow, he's been trained. Like,
yeah,
you know, I feel like you see that in, at least for me, like that just gives me a whole universe of glances into who he is as a character, and also, you know, who he is as a person in real life, which for me doesn't break the immersion. It just almost enhances the experience of watching the film, of just seeing a character like just perform in a way that, you know, like not just any actor could pull off. You know, he has that, you know, that background of just explosive athleticism, and to see it utilized in a character. I mean, I could go on and on just trying to explain the ways I'm trying to understand it, because I'm still trying to understand it. But for some reason, that moments like that of just cool character nuance, whether it's in emotions or physicality or just dialogue, like even down to like the hot sauce line. Like, I mean, it's silly, it's cool, it's you know, it's just whatever it is. I don't know, but it just really stuck with me in fascinating ways.
One of the staying on Christopher Nolan movies, one of the, like the most like physical things I've seen in a film is in The Dark Knight Rises, when Batman and Bane are fighting underneath the in the sewers, and he kicks Batman off that kind of like bridge, and instead of just like jumping off or going down the steps, he like lowers him down like on those chains, and you can see like his Tom Hardy's giant biceps going down. You're like, oh my gosh, like how strong. Like I would be terrified if I were
Tom Hardy's just casually like using a chain as an elevator, and the elevator is like his freaking biceps.
Oh my gosh. And like
absolutely,
I feel like Christopher Nolan has a great eye for casting actors that are willing to commit 100% to the roles that they're playing. I mean, one of those is, you know, being Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight, like one of the greatest performances of all time.
And that right there, I mean, that entire performance is full of incredible, you know, physical acting, like physical nuance acting. Like when he's like out of the cop car and his eyes are closed and the wind is just like blowing through his hair, or like, you know, the thing that Heath developed where he would constantly like lick the scars around his mouth,
trying to make the scar makeup stay on.
And I don't know what it is, but like the more people I talk to just about films in general, the more I find that really cool moments of like physical acting nuance really sticks with people. And I find that fascinating that, you know, you find so many examples of really great scenes in movies where cool moments of like physical acting are kind of at the heart of it.
And like a lot of the times, and this is just coming from my actor's perspective, is that a lot of those like really physical moments are like unintentional for the most part, or like accidental, or it's just improvised. Or like one of my favorite like kind of moments like that is in On the Waterfront, when Marlon Brando and I forget the actress's name in that, On the Water. This is the great thing about having a computer right in front of me. Eva Marie Saint. I knew it was something with an E. I didn't want to get it wrong though. Anyways, they're talking and they're walking in the park, and there's this great moment where she's playing with her glove, and then it falls off, and apparently the director was about to yell cut, you know, and it was directed by old what's his name? Oh my gosh, Elia Kazan, like one of the classic ones. Apparently he was about to cut, but Marlon Brando like walked over and picked it up like while like still in the moment and like started playing with it himself. It was like kind of, I know that's like a weird moment to recall, but like it always just kind of stuck with me, and that was purely on accident. And I feel like a lot of those moments and a lot of these performances, of course they're, you know, a lot of like, you to be that good you have to put in a lot of work, but then there's like really special moments that you take away from that are completely accidental.
Yeah.
Or like with Heath Ledger licking his lips, like that was like an accidental thing, like he had to overcome, because like the makeup would over time would like begin to like kind of dissipate, and so by licking it kind of stayed together. And then
it's cool to like this. I was just saying this. Go ahead. Sorry. Finish your.
I was just saying, and now like, and whenever we think of that, of the Joker, we think of Heath Ledger licking his lips.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying it all ties back to that, like even like that story you told about Nolan, you know, going and living his life and having these like things. It's like, you know, the art kind of gets into the story and the story kind of gets into the art. Mm-hmm. And then the art kind of merges into real life and real life merges into the art. And it's like, it's just crazy, like pinball game of just, you know, realistic, you know, factors that are playing into the work that they're doing on the set, factors that playing, you know, like narrative factors in the story, like, you know, just factors of like, who are the actors as people and as, you know, just human beings, like what are they capable of, or secret like little talents they have or little quirks that they have. But like, and I find it interesting because, you know, there's physical acting that's like cliche, like there's physical acting and gestures and facial expressions that when you see in a movie, it's not like surprising because it's stuff that, you know, we use every day in our everyday lives. But I feel like with like all the examples we've just listed, you know, those are little things that, you know, more than personalizing a movie to an audience member, that automatically, you know, personalizes the movie in of itself. Cause that's like a little moment that might be the very first time something like that's been captured on screen.
Yeah.
And it's the last, because anyone who does it after that, if it's noticed, you know, it'll just be
it's forced.
It'll just be like, it'll be forced. But what's cool is like, there's so many moments like that littered through film history that a lot of people don't know about, that directors like Nolan will, you know, go back and sort of, you know, pick from for inspiration. Because, you know, I mean, a lot of directors get inspiration from, you know, work throughout history. And that's what I love it, because I mean, I don't know any examples of this off the top of my head, but, you know, sometimes that stuff comes from, like you said, just these natural sort of moments of acting and these kind of perfect combination of forces. But sometimes, you know, it'll be that cool little moment that maybe, you know, for example, Christopher Nolan saw in a movie when he was a kid, and, you know, no one else in the world would, you know that moment by name, but, you know, Christopher Nolan will put it in a movie or like put it in a character somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Man, I wasn't expecting to talk this much about Christopher Nolan, but like he's had like, a huge impact.
As with all things, all roads lead to Nolan. No one leads to all roads. I mean, you know, but I mean, his films are so, you know, magnificent and have kind of defined a lot of different, you know, years of our generation that, you know, it's no wonder that just in talking about him, you get such a fascinating, just, you know, branching off to all these different subjects.
No, absolutely. And just reading the book, like I'm not only inspired to make films myself and see how to make movies in different ways and how to absorb different art to be able to inspire myself, but like I also really want to work with the guy as an actor. I really hope he keeps making movies as long as like Alfred Hitchcock did, you know, into his 70s, or however old Hitchcock was before he croaked. I was gonna say, it's just a really great book. It sounds like I'm pushing it or it's like a sponsor, but it's a really great book to read if you're just really fascinated with the film itself. But I was gonna ask you, are there any films that you're looking forward to this year, 2022?
Interesting. Funny enough, like the films I'm looking forward to are films that have already been released. Like they're movies that I just haven't watched yet, but that are on my list.
Gotcha. Well, what are those?
No, did I say haven't been released? If I said that, I meant have been released.
No, you said that. Yeah.
Okay.
What movies?
I came across this. And funny enough, there's another great moment of like that physical, acting in this film that everyone seems to talk about when they see the movie. But I don't have the details on it right now, so I might, skip over certain details, or I might mess up the details. Either way, I came across this movie about a couple of years ago. Still haven't watched it, but it's called The 13th Warrior, and it's with Antonio Banderas and like a lot of other people who I can't name off the top of my head. But it's like a really cool kind of like I don't even know like how to describe it really. It's like takes place almost in like Viking era times, or like Antonio Banderas is like this explorer who goes and like lives with some of the Vikings. And
Oh
wow. As far as I can tell, I don't think it's based on a true story. And if it
No,
is, it's probably very loosely based. But I've heard it's just like one of those like classic kind of adventure action sort of battle movies, like war movies. It's not a war film. It's just got a great story. I mean, once again, I couldn't tell you any details about it. I've just seen some random scenes from it, but it looked really compelling. And from what I've read, it did not do very well at the box office, but it became like a cult hit. There's like a cult classic in the groups that know about it.
Oh, sorry, keep going.
Oh, no. And I was just saying that it looks really cool because I think it was done in the 90s maybe, but it has that kind of real like practical effects, kind of large scale, fight scenes, like kind of cool sort of, ancient, just depictions of, warriors and their kind of code and their ethics. And I don't know, like I'm kind of just loosely interpreting it because I really haven't read that much about it, because obviously it's been out for so long, there's going to be spoilers, so I'm trying to watch it fresh. But that just kind of popped up on my list, and a couple of the scenes I watched, it just has this really cool, like almost like gritty handheld feel to it, despite the fact that it's like a really sort of big scale like battle kind of action movie.
I love the scenes like that. I've seen. And Antonio Banderas, he's in one of my like favorite kind of like action films that kind of fit into the same vein as like the Count of Monte Cristo or Pirates of the Caribbean, and that's The Mask of Zorro. I haven't seen it in a long time, but
is that the one with Anthony Hopkins?
Yes, Anthony Hopkins. Amazing. And Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yep.
I think like Stuart Wilson is the bad guy, but that one is just a lot of fun. I haven't seen it in a long time. That's when I grew up watching with my dad a lot, because it is kind of like a okay action film to watch with your children. I'm sure some stuff like went over my head, but Antonio Banderas has had a long, great career. He's done so many things.
He really has. He's been around for a hot minute, and I feel like he's never someone that I'm too aware of or too not aware of. But like every time he pops up in something, I always seem to enjoy seeing him do his thing.
Exactly. Yeah, I know he's in the new Uncharted movie.
He is. You're right.
Which I'm probably not gonna watch. But
the video games are already masterpieces. They didn't need to make a film.
Yeah, those are some of my favorite video games of all time. So I'm just like, no, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't think Hollywood has learned about the video game movie and how they really don't translate well.
Yeah.
But I saw this one's making some money, so Sony will continually probably look at other properties they can kind of milk.
Well, if it brings more people's attention to the video games, then that makes me happy, because those video games are like, I mean, I hold some of those games as like my favorite movies, because I might as well just have been playing through a movie. I was like so invested in them.
Which one's your favorite one?
I played 3 first. That was my first one that I ever played.
Oh, you played them out of order too?
Yeah, I played them out of order. I was at like a friend's house for a spin the night when I was like in middle school. And everyone had fallen asleep, and I was like wide awake. And I walked over to his PlayStation. I was like, he won't mind if I play on his PlayStation. And so I started like looking through his games, and I was like, Uncharted, what is that? And I'd like heard of it, but I just thought it was, just like a like Tomb Raider or something. I just didn't really know what it was. And then I put it in and started at the first, mission. And I literally think by the next morning I'd finished it. And I
Oh
was just
my
like,
word.
I was like talking in treasure maps. I was just like, I was like absolutely obsessed with it. And then I went back and did it in chronological order. And I just thought the last one, number 4, was just fantastic.
Yeah, so the order I played in was 2, 3, 1. And then I obviously played 4. I think I've played through the 4th the most because that's my favorite one as well. That one crushed me that evening, and I really hope. I heard they were talking about maybe doing a 5th, but I really, really hope they don't touch.
Well, they did.
Again.
I don't know if you saw, but they did an informal 5th game.
I did see that. Yeah,
the Lost Legacy, where they go to India, but it's not Nathan and it's not Nathan Drake. It's the 2 female characters from the 4th game.
I think it's like Marlene and Chloe. But I feel like I read somewhere where they're like, Nathan Drake may come back. I'm just really hoping he doesn't, because I'm like, it's okay.
That was a perfect ending.
Yeah.
But like, even with that, like, that's a great example. I mean, I'm sure everyone has their own opinions, but for me, when I played through it, that felt like a fantastic example. Obviously, kind of like, some large TV shows, they had much more time to tell their story. It wasn't a 2-hour long video game, but like, that felt like a story with really big scale, but really great, complexity and nuance with the characters. Like, it felt like the treasure hunt was there to just enhance the character's story, not the character's story there to enhance, the treasure hunt.
No, absolutely. Like, those characters are some of the most like well-written characters. Like, I just think in pop culture, like not just video games, but like you said, like at times it really does feel like you're just watching this like classic movie. And the fact that it's also a video game is kind of just like the cherry on top.
Definitely. And maybe you can comment on this. Just
maybe
in terms
I won't.
Of you don't have to if you don't want to. It's your podcast. But I'd be curious to see if it affected you in a similar way. But like, and spoiler alert, but it's been out since like 2017, I think.
Yeah, we can spoil it.
But there's a scene when they finally reach the kind of abandoned city, like the at the end of the game, where when they're nearing the kind of final part of the story, where Nathan Drake and his wife are like driving up to the gates of this abandoned colonial city. And it's probably one of my favorite moments in the game, and it has nothing to do with the treasure. It has nothing to do with like a big gunfight, and there's no one shouting out dramatic last words as they jump into a pit of fire. Like, it's literally Nathan Drake and his wife driving a Jeep up a hill in like a rainforest with really peaceful music playing.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's not even like, you can't even see the abandoned colonial city around them. It's literally just them in a Jeep in the rainforest. But it's like the sort of culminative scene that speaks to kind of like the troubles they're having in a relationship as husband and wife. And it's kind of like this culmination where they're not resolved yet in their sort of conflict, but they've decided to just put it aside for the moment because there's bigger things at play. But it's like, and I want you to comment on this, but like, did that scene affect you in a similar way? Where like, I was like, oh, look at the pirate city, look at like the pirate ship, look at all the ancient abandoned ruins. And all of a sudden, here's this scene that has nothing to do with any of the treasure stuff. And I'm like, wow, like, it has really affected me in a really fascinating way, that you can have a scene in the middle of a game that has nothing to do with what the game is about. And yet that one ends up like sticking with you the longest.
No, yeah, that's what the game is all about, though. Like, their relationships and like their choices that have affected one another. And like this, I feel like just any great media can do that, is when you have so much going on and then it can kind of catch you off guard with this like moment that seems really small, but in actuality, it's like really this huge internal moment. And I know exactly what moment you're talking about. And man, like that's like capturing like just magic in a bottle. It's like it's just one of the hardest things you can do. And
but I feel like this goes back to
You make me
I
want to
know,
replay that game like right now.
I know. It makes me want to just like get on and play just that one part.
I know.
Um,
Oh,
but what I always love, and maybe you do the same, like I'm such a big just like YouTube fanatic after I've watched something, of
yes.
just scouring the comments section beneath, a video of one of the scenes just to see how people, interacted with that same moment. And with that moment, if you look up that scene on YouTube, the comments are just filled with people expressing how long it stayed with them after playing the game,
Yeah.
despite the fact that it didn't actually really have anything to do with, this sort of treasure they were trying to find. It was really all about their relationship. Um, and I mean, this goes back to writing as well. Same thing with like, Nolan's writing too, where it might seem counterintuitive, but for people that, really love writing and really just love studying writing and just, exploring new writing, it almost seems that the more personal something is, the more universal it is for an audience.
No,
Like
yeah,
the more
absolutely.
specific something is written about, the more it like hits home to audience members and viewers.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes you can completely just like miss out on those moments because like I was saying earlier, like when you consume media at different ages, it can hit you in a different way. Like
Yeah.
one of these gamer YouTubers I'm subscribed to, when Uncharted 4 came out back in 2017 and he reviewed it, it kind of caught me off guard because he didn't really like it that much. And I think last year he then tweeted out his favorite video games of all time, and Uncharted 4 was in his top 5. And
Interesting.
he was like, I played it again and it just hit me on so many different levels. And I had matured so much more in life. I understood. And what the funny thing was, is that in between that time, he had been engaged and then married, and then he had replayed it
Wow.
again. And it was just like one of those things where you're like, oh,
Wow.
wow. And then you think to yourself, like, I wonder what movies I've maybe kind of shut out, or video games or music or TV shows I've shut out because I didn't like fully relate or comprehend at the time.
Yeah.
Because sometimes in life you do need to go through certain experiences to appreciate certain levels of art.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think when it's
Well, I mean,
really
just like once
personal,
again
I feel like when a movie is really personal to the director, the writer, and the actors, like man, it just becomes so much more magical. Like one of the things Christopher Nolan was talking about to this journalist in his book was about how Leonardo DiCaprio like really helped him do some rewrites on the script for Inception, like making it more personal to Leo and like developing that relationship between Dom and Mao.
yeah.
Um, uh, and just sometimes like I love it when I like hear that an actor can come in and be like, oh well, like, do you mind if I infuse this? And the director's like, absolutely, let's workshop it together.
Well,
Um,
it's like the more personal and specific touches
yeah,
are compiled into a story. I feel like the more it really it just there's just the that's just an even higher possibility of it affecting people on all those different levels, whether it's like the set design, or whether it's like the story or the music or the writing or
exactly. And I feel like um when a director and a writer is solely in charge of that, it excels. But when like a studio is like, okay, we need to hit these points, so you need to make sure you have a scene like this in, or a scene like this in, or a scene like this
yeah.
in, make sure we hit like all the target demographics. Like for example, like Vince Gilligan, it like was essentially like, I know he had different other directors and writers help him too, but he was kind of the main guy behind Breaking Bad. And I've never sold or done any drugs, but like I relate to all those characters in so many different ways because they just feel so real and they're human.
Yeah.
And I never
What?
feel like I'm being like specifically targeted because there are so many people that love that show. And you could, go to any popular show and maybe pull out examples, but that's just the one that like I went to just because I am so different from those characters.
Definitely. Well, I mean, it's beautiful because like even if that's not your experience, it affects you. But for
Mhm.
people out there that maybe have spent time in that world, it probably, I mean, I can't, it probably just affects them even more so. And and that's just a really beautiful spectrum about the effects the show can have. Like
Mm.
that show can affect you whether or not that's real to you or your life. I mean, my lord, the Hamilton. Who on earth would have thought we would live in a time where like people would become obsessed with one of the founding fathers? But like every interview that he ever gave, Lin-Manuel Miranda, the guy who wrote it, he always said that his foremost intention, when he was like, I just want people to understand it, like Hamilton was like a rapper, he's like coming up from, like the bottom. He's like going through all these things. And it's like, this might've been the 1700s, but their emotions and the way their brains worked and the way that their relationships came together and broke off and, separated and had troubles and had wins. It's like, it's not that different from, what we live through currently. And I feel like it was in such a cool scale of like that time and the revolution and everything, but it's such like, there's so many things in that musical that, I relate to just in terms of like personal relationships and, taking part in the Revolutionary War. No, but it is that thing where like, that's probably one of the first times in recent memory that someone has personalized historical figures like that, beyond just like, a personal account or a journal written about them or like, some documentarian from that time. Like it just really puts you in the mind of like a normal dude under crazy circumstances and, in crazy expectations.
I just like the idea that there was like some guy in like some small town, like years before how do you say his last name?
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yes. I'm not even going to try to say it again. I know that's not a hard one, but I get tongue tied easily. I just like to think that there's like some guy like somewhere before, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Hey, I said it. Even thought of that idea and was like trying to convince his friends and like his wife that like he had this musical idea about the founding fathers, and they just all like convinced him not to do it. And now like I can just see him like flipping on like the TV, and he's just like, no, they took it from me.
But you actually, despite the funniness of that image, like it really did bring me back to what you said about like Christopher Nolan, where like Lin-Manuel Miranda just randomly picked up a biography about Alexander Hamilton before going on his honeymoon. Like the dude just saw it in an airport bookstore and he was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And it just so happened, and this goes back to your Christopher Nolan thing. All roads lead to Nolan, dude, I swear. This goes back to the Christopher Nolan thing, because he read that book and found that a huge amount of things that Hamilton had gone through were almost like parallel mirroring things that he was going through in his personal life right now, with like literally coming from, like an immigrant from, like a small nation, in like a different city, and with a family, from that country. And, he was currently in a relationship and he was about to have his first child. And, I'm talking about like both, Hamilton and Lin-Manuel Miranda, like he was going through these things as he was reading the guy's life. And, I just find it so fascinating how like the stars kind of align with certain works of art when like the artist lets themselves, be open to how their life can, influence it. And, he didn't, like rush through that and put it up, a month later. I think if I remember correctly, it took him 6 or 7 years, not to get it made, but to write it. Like that wasn't including like, putting it up, choreographing, music, like just to put it all together in his, conceptualization of it was like 6 or 7 years. And all that time, he was living his life in very strange ways, like mirroring things that happened in Hamilton's life.
That's great. He was assassinated?
No.
Were you about to say not yet?
Well, the joking part of my mind was about to just instinctually say that, but I said I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, you shouldn't say that. No. If he is, then we're in big trouble.
I mean, like yeah. I just think it's just so fascinating when you look into really just well received, works of music or art or something else, and it just has, whether really, obviously or more so like metaphorically, it has a clear sort of fingerprint of, the creator of its, personal journey, either before or during the making of it.
No, absolutely. And that's what this podcast is. It's a work of genius.
That's what I'm saying. We're exploring our our identities as we grow as people. And it is something that like I was thinking about the other night, and I want to know about your experiences in your younger years with this, because I want to know if it was the same for you. But like, I didn't notice it when I was doing it, but like if I look back now at like, you know, fun movies I made with friends, or like little fan films, or little just like short videos for YouTube and stuff, like I conducted myself, you know, on those little, you know, sets in the backyard with a, you know, iPhone, like I was on, you know, a professional movie set.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I don't even know if I did it consciously, but it's kind of that aspect of like, even if you're not there in your personal journey yet, you know, you're allowing your mind to kind of be in that world even before you arrive there. And I feel like then everything after that is just kind of scaling it up or into different mediums. But like, did you have that experience where like people be like, you're like really serious about this, aren't you? And you're like, yep.
No, yeah, absolutely. Like whenever, I mean, I just like to think I've always been very serious, and like very much like, not like serious to the point where it becomes like agitating to work with me, but like serious to the point
totally.
Like, no, if we're gonna do this, like let's do it right. Like I remember
let's let totally
videos like outside with one of my buddies, and we made this really dumb video where it was just me shooting a basketball, and I was trying to explain to him that it wasn't supposed to be like cool, it was supposed to be funny, because in it I'm far away from the net.
Yeah.
So I was trying to pitch some idea, and I was like, no, it's got to be done this way. He was like, no, let's just keep recording it until you actually make one. And I was like, no, the point of it is we're going to be so braggadocious in the video and be so like high on ourselves. Like the point of the video was I launch it towards the net, and then it cuts to a terribly shot like underneath the basket, like it going in, it just the ball dropping in. Like obviously I didn't make it, but whenever it does, I'm like, yeah, like, and I'm way closer than I was before. And he was like, you know, this doesn't make any sense. People will think you like cheated. And I was like, no, that's the point, but we have to act as if like I really did, because that's what makes it funny. And I think he was more annoyed with me, but I thought it ended up being really funny.
No, I mean, it was the same thing for me, where like you're gonna have like you would make these videos, and you like some people at school would see it and they'd be like, hey, can I make a video with you guys? I'm like, sure, come on out. And then like they get there and they're like, you guys are like really serious about this. And like it wasn't like we weren't having fun, but like our fun was like treating it, you know, kind of professionally, or like you said, like, just really like, you know, not just running around and you know, like just, you know, filming whatever came to mind, but like really like having a plan and like a methodology of like how to go about shooting it, what this scene would kind of mean in the larger story. And like, but yeah, same thing for me. Like you have these friends, like I never forget, like we had this one time where you know, we were like doing just like a cool kind of like action sort of thriller, and a friend of ours from school was like, hey, that looks like really cool what you guys are doing, like can I come over and be a part of it? I'm like, sure, yeah. And then he came over, and about halfway through he's like, this is too hard, like I don't want to think about it this much, like can we just like make the video? And I'm like, but where's the fun in that?
No, people don't realize how hard it is to make even just stupid stuff.
No, I mean, I kid you, like same thing with you. Like we're literally filming this on an iPhone. But, like we would have like pre-production meetings, like in my friend's, you know, like kitchen, and like we would go like location scouting, and we would have like wardrobe fittings, like by his closet, like we would do like the whole thing. Like you'd have like, you know, you'd have like stunt rehearsal day, like right before filming. Like I mean, and everyone that like showed it to take part were like, oh, I thought we were literally just like, you know, like just, you know, fake fighting each other and filming it. I'm like, no. So see, this is going to be like our second setup after lunch. And then like just this whole thing.
I love that so much. I was talking to my wife and the other day, and I was like, you know, what's incredible is that you can put a lot of hard work and just try to do your ultimately like your best job on a movie, and it can still come out like terrible. That's how hard it is to make a movie. And like
But that's also back to, Nolan's thing
Mhm.
and letting a story do its job and not letting, the business run the story.
Exactly.
Like, that's so funny to bring that up, because I was literally just thinking about that last night, like what you're saying, where you can have the most talented people and the most amount of money in the world thrown at something. But if the script wasn't, matured correctly,
Yeah.
if it was thrown into the ringer and people just threw wads of cash at it, it's probably not going to come out.
You know what Alfred Hitchcock said was the 3 main things that you needed to make a great movie?
What did he say?
He said, first, you need a script. The second, you need a script. And the third, you need a script. The movie has to have a great script. Otherwise, if you don't get that done, it's not going to be a good movie. Like, you can have a great script with not many known famous actors, or even a big time director, and it can still probably come out pretty good. And then you can have a terrible script with A-listers and maybe a director who has made good movies previously, and the movie can just stink.
Well, I mean, I just go to Lord of the Rings. Like, Peter Jackson had done one movie. Like, I think he'd literally done one small budget horror movie.
Yeah, he did, like, I forget what it was called, but the one with the puppets, right?
Yeah, and like, my Lord, like 75% of that cast, they just plucked out of nowhere. Like, Orlando Bloom was fresh out of film school.
Yeah.
I think Viggo Mortensen had probably done a couple things. I don't think Elijah Wood had even been born yet.
No, he was. I mean, honestly, Elijah Wood was probably the most famous one because he had done the Whale movie.
And that's what's so funny is, like,
and then Sean Astin was in Rudy and Goonies, but really hadn't done anything in a while. So, all those people they cast, like, they took a huge chance on. I really don't think, like, Cate Blanchett was big, like super big. She'd probably worked on some stuff, but wasn't that big of an actress. Really, and then
Ian McKellen was really well known, like, in the stage world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but I bring that up because, like, Lord of the Rings is a fantastic story, and even though it was put in the hands of people who someone might not take a chance on because they're also kind of fresh, the story carried that project because everyone working on that was very aware that like, if they do their due diligence and really put in the work, it's such a good story that it's just like it's inevitably going to affect people if it's done the right way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Have you listened?
That's obviously the key, like, if it's done the right way. But it's like you said, you can work as hard and as amazing as you can. Thankfully, everyone on the Lord of the Rings set worked really hard and worked amazingly. But at the end of the day, it's just an amazing story. And, that's why those movies are still so just freaking impressive even to this day.
Yeah, you should check out the Friendship Onion with Dominic Morgan and Billy Boyd. They have a podcast, and it's great. They talk to a lot of the guys from Lord of the Rings about certain things about the film and, like, how great that story is and how it still affects their lives. But speaking of podcasts, I think this is a great place to stop for today.
I think we've covered a lot. All roads lead to Nolan. You need a script and go play Uncharted.
Yes. Takeaways from this are allow Noah and I to make movies.
Yes.
all roads lead to Nolan. Go play Uncharted. And if Lin-Manuel Miranda is assassinated,
it's not my fault.
It's not Noah Winter's fault.
In our conversation. I promise it's not my fault. And also, if you're ever in an airport bookstore, just maybe pick up a book. You never know.
That's the most pretentious thing. All right, I'm just joking. All right, man.
You never know what might happen to you if you just pick up a random biography at an airport bookstore.
Oh, that's great. That's a great way to end it. All right, man. I just saw your text. That's fine. I didn't see it before I said we should probably wrap it up. That's funny. But dude, you're headed to work right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna head out here in just a bit, but this has been a lovely, lovely conversation as always.
They always are, man. I hope we can talk to each other soon. I hope you have a great rest of your day, man. I'll let you know when I'm releasing this. I think I'm gonna do a solo one sometime tomorrow, release that this week, and then release this one the following week.
And Sampley will post a picture or a link of the Nolan book.
Yes, that's a good
wanna
idea.
read it.
Actually, I will do that. I can do that. I figured out.
Then we can have a podcast book club.
Dude, that's actually not a bad idea.
Like a podcast film book club. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh, speaking of that, I'm sorry, I know you have to go, but real quick, Jim Dent, the author of 12 Mighty Orphans, messaged me on Facebook.
No way.
He really liked my performance as Chicken. He said it really stood out to him, and that one day he'd love to meet me and talk.
All right, that's like the best way you could have ended this podcast. That's so cool.
Oh, it was so sweet of him. Yeah, he just got out of prison and he saw the movie. And
I want you to reiterate that part for everyone to hear.
Yeah, Jim did. Yeah, anyways. I'm probably going to edit that part out.
That's okay.
But all right, man. I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll talk soon.
All right. You have a fantastic day.
All right. You too, man. Love you, bro. God bless.
All right. See ya.
All right. Bye.
Bye.